Okay, we are back and we are now at the point where we will start modeling in our excavation massing. And to demonstrate this technique, let's go ahead and we will just do like two little samples off to the side, and then we will apply those to the rest of the project here. So I'm going to pick up the settings of our current mesh, and let's go in and we will actually, one thing I think I'll do is real quickly, let's go in, change our working units. We'll go back to feet, and we'll go feet in decimal feet. That should do it for us. So what I want to do is just kind of talk real quickly. In the last video, we talked a little bit about a normal mesh, and we also talked and introduced the concept of a negative mesh. So a normal mesh here, if we just kind of, create a little bit of interest here, we'll add new points. We can adjust these points. So let's do this. So currently to project 0, we're at 0 and -3. Let's set our internal point here from project 0. Let's just go up 2 feet as an example. And let's take a look at this in 3D. So this would be considered what we all kind of think about when we think of meshes, as we're working on the top plane here. Now we also have the option, instead of actually setting our height and home offset. So right now we have 3 feet as our height, which is noted here from our reference line going down. If we set our height to a -3 feet, you can see what happens. We then kind of inverse this, and in this case we can then start working on the bottom. So if we go and change our elevations now, say to -2 feet to project 0, you can see that we're starting to carve out from the bottom here. And of course we can go and we can set this back to a single plane now, and now we have the option. Well, actually it works very similar to what we had before, but now when we go back and just adjust the depth on it, it will remember and know that we're moving in the negative direction here. So this is an easy way that we can really shape the bottom of the excavation to the depth that we want, and at the same time use this mass as the volume that we will be calculating. So okay, so with that, let's go ahead, we'll just kind of pick up the settings. So we have, actually, you know what, we are going back to our module. We are going in and we will be picking up our excavation general, and within here let's set this to -5 feet to begin with, not 53 but -5 feet, and let's set this to 0, and we'll go back, and now it's time to start modeling in our excavation. So the best place that we can do this from is we can either start from our ground level here. In fact, we'll probably work from our ground level, but I probably want to turn on, just as a reference here, my foundation plan. So we'll switch this over. Let's see, why is that not coming on? Oh, because I have my trace all the way turned off. So, okay, so here we are. We have our foundation plan pulled up. And so with this, we can really start by just kind of tracing out the perimeter of our building. So we're going to the edge of footings here, and we're just going to start by creating that initial first massing for our excavation here. Okay, so there we go. We can see if we go to 3D where that is. We can do a quick highlight here, or a marquee of this entire thing, and we can now start going in and making some adjustments to our height. So we want to make sure that we have we're at least to a point where we are above our topography in all cases, which it looks like we currently are, so that's great. And at the same time, we want to really extend this entire thing down to a set elevation here. So to do this, we can measure from the top down to the bottom, and we are at 9.58 feet. So we can set this as, let's just go minus 10 feet. And once again, we can just kind of shift this down. So I'm going to set this so that our top point is matching kind of like our threshold at the garage level here. Okay, so there we are. So now we can actually take this. Can we adjust all these at once? No, not really. Let's actually set this. I want to set the bottom now to right where the bottom of our foundations are. So from here, we now have the opportunity to start going through, and we can add in some points of interest where needed to create the sloping that we want. So let's go back here to our 2D view, and we can actually use the line, or we can actually start drawing in some lines now to create our sloping here. So we know we have to get down in these areas here. We have to get down to essentially the back end of our footings here. So what I will do is, let's pick up our mesh here, and we want to do this. I think I'll actually do it with a line so I can magic wand this. So we're just going to draw a line, and essentially what I'm looking for is I want this to be somewhere pretty much in like the back of these first few steps. So we're going to go, I think probably we'll go to the second step, and we'll hope that this picks it up right for us. We can always adjust these as needed. So right now we are just creating some lines that we will use as kind of like a point of interest. And so I'm going to offset this, and we'll offset 3.5 feet here. So, okay, so that's part of it here. We also need to actually offset this out. And in this case, we'll just take it about 2 feet for now. Some of these we are going to be pushing out further, and I offset a copy there. I didn't want to do that. We're taking our entire mesh here, and we're just offsetting 2 feet. So that puts us pretty much right on our property line over on this side. And then in some of these areas, we will certainly be pushing these out. So, but nonetheless, we still need to get our sloping down to our footings again. And so with this, let's go ahead, and with our mesh selected, I don't think our magic wand is going to work real well in this case. So we will go through, and we will simply just retrace out our points here. I'm actually going to click on these for the moment. We can, kind of start from our back point here, go to there, because we're sloping down in that case. And again, we can always adjust these. Sloping up and sloping down. So, okay, so with that, we are now adding new points. We can magic wand, and we should be able to add points here as well. So we're creating new ridges. We'll have to see what's going on over on this side here. But let's check this out now. So we'll pull this all up. We can see that everything is really at the same elevation here. We need to go through and let's turn on our foundations actually. So if we marquee around this, we can actually start seeing our foundations here. And with this, we can go through and start making some adjustments. So we know in the front here, we are going to want to slope up essentially to grade. So I can snap this up to this point here. We can do the same from the back. And obviously that's a very, very steep incline. And so we're going to want to offset all of these. So I'm just going to kind of get these working up in the direction we want. And then we can take our reference line here and we can start offsetting. So we're actually moving outside of our cropped area here. So we want to get these somewhere in the range of like a 1-to-1 or close. But you can start to see that we are now sloping down. This one here, we might need to take this very far out just so that we have a bit of a ramp to get down and into. So, okay, so there we go. We are starting to get these working. We can always take these individual points and just kind of snap them up individually here. So, and just by doing this, we are actually starting to create our sloping through our footings here. So I'm going to snap this one over. We're just going to move it. We can snap it right there. We get pretty much a straight line here in the back. We can move that one. We can move that one. And we can elevate. So there may be a bit of excavation going on within here as well. So yeah, we can just kind of play with these a little bit. And okay, so there we go. We have a little bit of sloping going on here in the back. We probably want to just match these up exactly for the time being. So these slopes here are going to be cutting across. So once again, I'm just going to snap this straight up. We can see that these lines here actually worked out quite a bit better. We can take this, snap it to right there. We can snap this one. Well, actually, that's okay, right where it is. And okay, so you can see here that we are starting to create this sloping on this back end. Of course, we can just take these and kind of do some little offsets. Need to get all the way in here. Come on. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so starting to get a little bit of a shape here. And so in the back here, we got a lot of sloping here that we can take care of. So we need to take this point here. And one thing I think I'll do, because these property lines are kind of in our way, we're just going to temporarily hide them. Just give us a little bit more control over our view here on the side. And so once again, let's just elevate up. We'll leave that sloping down. Here in the back, yeah, we're going to, we don't necessarily need to take it all the way up to that height, but somewhere kind of in this vicinity. We want to be cutting right across the back here, and then of course we can offset this just like we did on the other side to give ourselves some room to slope down. Okay, over here we are already at a pretty good elevation. This part here we want to just adjust up to about the bottom of foundation. Do we have a good snap point here? There we go. Okay, so what we don't have here is we don't have a good point on our perimeter that's going to help break this up a little bit for us. So let's add a point, and then we're going to take this point actually right here, and we're elevating to that step. Okay. And actually on this side, we need to determine, since this is the edge of our excavation, whether we can actually get it up to grade and slope it like this, because this is going to be somewhat steep slope. Sometimes we just need to kind of do a isolation here so we can get an idea of how steep we actually are sloping there. We can actually even temporarily turn off our top here, and we can even go into our settings, and I mean we could even go to a white model. That's giving us like a nice clean view. So we got some work we need to do over here. Certainly we can offset these, offset this back a ways so we can slope. This will need to come up. And okay, so we're starting to get that shape coming through. Where we got a bit of a challenge is going to be right along this point here, because that's where our property line is. So that's where we talked about before, might having to do some shoring right here. So because this is a really steep slope, I think we'll probably have to add that in. But right now we are starting to get things working. So same thing along this edge here. We can actually, because we have the room over here, we can just extend this out. And now when we take a look at this, we can see that we have a much more one-to-one in much of this slope here. In this particular case, we may want to kind of offset in this direction out so we can create, this is nice and easy to slope down to. This gets much steeper right here, so we have a little bit of a face that we need to work with. And so we can clean this up by simply going through and adding in, let's drop in a guideline real quick. So to get down to this point, we can add a sloping point to it. So we'll add some points. And now we have the option for sloping to that. So, okay, let's go back to the 3D. And we can take this and drop it down a bit more. So, okay, so we are moving right along. So the areas that we think that we may need to do some shoring or some stepping. So if we wanted to add some steps in here, what I find the best method of doing this is essentially we just create two lines that are very close to each other. So like say from right here, we can take a line, cut it entirely down this entire path. And so if we wanted to create a step, I would create one here, and I'm just going to offset it just a slight amount here. And we select our mesh, and we just create some points. And so this acts essentially as a bit of a ridge that we can then take and we can step. So we step it from here to here. So it's creating a little bit of a shelf there. So if we wanted to get this down, probably want to create another step even right next to it here. We just don't have a whole lot of space to be working with here on the edge. So I'm actually going to undo that. And let's just push this over just slightly. So we'll use our boundary here as one part of the step. And I'm actually going to create a point of interest right here. And then let's magic wand this one. Okay. So with this, so let's step it maybe like half the distance. So we're going straight down and then we are sloping. So that's one way of potentially getting down here. If the soil will allow you to do a straight cut, in this case, we're only going down a little over 2 feet. So that's probably allowable. It's just when we get to here where we need to go down much further, where we may need to work in some shoring. So, so this would actually probably take care of us on that side. Over here, we have kind of a nice clean ramp for getting down. This is probably acceptable to leave that as is. I like that slope. Once again here, we could probably use just a little bit of help by creating a another kind of shelf over here. So let's go to this side. And so we need to get down. So to do that, we can just create a line right here. Selecting our mesh, cutting straight in. So that moves our point, and then we can also create one from here over to here. And let's check this out now. So already we're looking a little better. We can just drop this down. Drop that down. Okay, so that's getting us down there without having any faces that are really too steep. So yeah, with this, I think we are getting pretty close here. This is a little steep right here, but I think we can probably work with that. We can always offset this edge here a bit, which is going to flatten that out slightly. And all right, so I'm going to actually move this one over so that we are essentially getting rid of these kind of intermediate points. So we can get those to disappear. And okay, so there we go. We now have our, generally, speaking, this is, it kind of acts as our subgrade as well as our volume. So if we go back and we turn this on to a volume, we now have a nice a massing here that we can then go into our toolbars or our palettes, element information, and we can start getting closer on our cubic yards that we're working with here. So, okay, so with that, we now have this in. The next video here, we're going to go in and start working with some solid element operators so that we can really start calculating our volumes. We will also, kind of trim this down so that we have the exact volume that we're looking for. And yeah, so in the next video is going to be all about solid element operators. And yeah, hopefully this gives you some good ideas for how you can create these types of cuts for yourself. And yeah, moving right along here to the next step, we'll get into the SEO. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions on this, leave it in the comment section. And yeah, we will catch you on the next video here.